What's a major incident that happened in your school? Someone set chicken nuggets on fire in the microwave and triggered the fire alarm, which meant a fire drill. A couple months earlier I had accidentally burned some Chips Ahoy cookies trying to melt the chocolate chips. This was all in middle school. To this day, every time I see someone from that school they ask me about the time I set the nuggets on fire, which I never did. Out of all the crap I pulled at that school, including a different microwave fire, the only thing I'm remembered for is the thing I never did. 1. Somebody called in a bomb threat, possibly to avoid a test. SWAT team showed up and everything. 2. Somebody took a writ in the halls or the staircase because our principal only allowed one boy to enter restrooms at a time and he really had to go. Someone burned our school down. We had to finish school in those little trailers that construction companies use as offices in construction sites. We made shirts saying graduated from, school name, trailer park. Some kid who was suspended showed up to school high on coke demanding to be let in, threw a table at a glass door and broke it, then tried to fight a security guard with a fire extinguisher. Our school is super rural and at the peak only had 4 African American students. All of them were very popular, and one of them was in my sister's class. He was an alright healthy individual and one day he was in the gym playing basketball and fainted and died. For a week our school mourned, and teachers the day of just played movies or made us read. The reason why I bring up race is that the student body all wore black power bracelets in remembrance of him during basketball games. Edit. I talked to some of my old high school friends and I got my facts wrong. Another African student was nicknamed Black Power, and the student body all wore black magic bracelets in remembrance. IDK if it's better or worse. 1. Someone got on the intercom and played pumped up kicks for the whole school while his teacher was out of the class. People were calling their parents terrified and we had police called in. 2. Not major but this one guy took a dump on the bathroom floor for $10. Was suspended for 3 days. Then did it again for another $10. 3. It in. One of the middle school teachers had a sexual relationship with a high school student for a while. After they were discovered and on court orders not to see each other he still hooked up with her like 9 more times before he got his sentence. 4. Edited in. Some random car pulled up to the smoke pit and pepper sprayed everyone before driving away. Classmate was killed from a single punch in a fist fight. He had asked the assistant principal to leave early to avoid it but was denied. And even though the assistant principal knew that a fight was probably going to happen he did nothing to try to prevent it. Guy kept his job but the school paid out millions. Rest in peace TJ. A pupil committed suicide in our school. People did some digging and it turned out a lad has been bullied heavily that his parents and friends have reported to the teachers and school for a long time. But they failed to act. So when the news crew arrived, the school went into full damage control and threatened kids to not talk to the press otherwise they'll get a detention, while at the same time doing this anti-bully week, putting up posters, and trying to create this illusion that this was a happy and safe school. It was a really weird time. A few months later, another pupil committed suicide. Someone spilled milk behind a shelf on a Friday. On Monday, the carpets really stank. I lived a sheltered life. In 6th grade me and my friends stole an orange from the school cafeteria and hid it behind a shelf and then a teacher found it 5 years later. That was funny. There is a grape sitting on a ledge from 3 years ago at my high school. It has long since turned into a raisin, but it remains untouched since we put it there as freshmen. High school teacher got caught sleeping with his student. Got fired. Went to jail. Got out. Left his wife with whom he had 2 kids. Kept seeing the student. Got hitched. Had another kid with her. And they're still together. Not quite as extreme. But there was a teacher at my HS who got fired for sexual misconduct with a student, occurring at the school itself. Kicker, the teacher's wife also taught at the school. And she was a former student of his. Felt awful for her. It was a whole thing for a while. 1. A girl gave her boyfriend a BJ right in the middle of the crowded cafeteria, and a teacher noticed and started yelling at them. The dude must have panicked and pushed her head down because she ended up throwing up all over his D. 2. A kid was expelled for masturbating to furry porn in the computer lab. The librarian walked in on him. 3. Somebody somehow managed to sneak in a dismembered deer carcass and scattered various parts around the school hallways. Turn a corner and bam, severed deer head staring right at you. Back in elementary school, a kid tried to start a fire in the toilets to burn down the school. He was caught by a teacher who walked by and he was caned in front of the whole school as punishment. A female student in my class had a teacher she really didn't like for whatever reason. One day when the teacher entered the classroom, she had her feet on her desk, so he told her something like, "Get your feet down. You're not at the beach." So, that girl took advantage and complained to the school principal that this teacher implied he wanted to see her in a bathing suit. The teacher obviously denied it, but the girl doubled down and got the parents' union involved, and there was a massive outcry about sexually harassing teachers in the school. There was a protest outside the school gate one morning organized by the girl's parents, and I think the local newspaper reported the story. The teacher got fired eventually. The thing is, there were plenty of witnesses to what happened that could say she was full of bullet and the teacher did nothing wrong. But she was one of the popular girls, so everybody kinda decided to not get involved. 1. Pregnant assistant principal was punched in the stomach deliberately. 2. Two APs were caught having sex in an empty room and they were both married. 3. A fight broke out after someone pulled a fire alarm during a pep rally. Multiple APs and school security guards became involved in what must have been a 20-minute brawl, which moved onto a main street then entered the other side of the school. The head principal yelled at everyone on the PA for about 5 minutes after it ended. 4. There were multiple fake shooting threats. I went to middle school on a military base and there was a stretch of time where people kept throwing simulation grenades on campus. Hold up. Why is there a middle school on a military base? My dad was in the military and the bases are also meant for the families of the soldiers and has schools, small shopping centers, bowling alleys, theaters, and whatnot. On the base I was living on, they were doing simulations in a secluded place and I guess one of the soldiers were either storing simulation grenades or just bringing them home and a kid kept throwing them onto campus. Some girl wrote a note in the girls' bathroom that had a bomb threat on it 3 times in the span of a week. The first 2 times the school was evacuated. I think the third was actually a shooting threat, so we had to shelter in place. I have 2. I go to a boarding school that claims to have best school security out there. My first year there, these 3 boys that I was actually friends with snuck off campus by just going over the small white fence and the alarms didn't go off. The school found out real quick they snuck off because they were missing and were making sure they were in their rooms. They were already known to be troublemakers and that's how they knew something was up. Second incident, this super annoying guy who used himself being gay as a personality trait got his head beaten in with a golf club for harassing the dude's roommate. Cops were called and everything. This kid would also moan in the hallways to get people's reactions and then turn around and call people homophobic for telling him to stop moaning because it makes everyone uncomfortable. A kid at my high school overdosed on the bathroom while the rest of the class was watching a video about the dangers of drugs. He was expelled 1 week before graduation. I don't know whatever happened to him. When I was much younger, my grade 7 teacher's assistant was charged and fired for allegedly having sexual with a student. School was grade 7-8. My teacher, who was friends with him, always said he didn't do it. In grade 9, one of the kids in my math and gym classes was found dead, shot multiple times on the side of a road. I knew him and he was involved in a lot of gang stuff and general bad. The school basically didn't even acknowledge it because he dropped out 4 months into grade 9 and died 2 months later, so he technically wasn't a student. I only know about it because I saw it in the news and recognized the kid. A guy I knew kinda, who was my classmate and some reason decided to be a troublemaker, ended up stealing a cart on school campus and riding it. He had to pay building damages from running it into the wall, which ended up with him going to juvenile detention and transferring to a different school district. Lots of kids ended up recording this moment on Instagram. The whole school smelled like weed and some kids had like 3 pounds of weed in a locker. They got tipped off that the principal called the cops and they knew it was them, so they scrambled and hid the weed all over the school. The cops came and they all kept quiet and no one found any weed. It was me, I was the kid with the weed. When I was in my first year of school, we all heard rumors that our French teacher had dropped a purple vibrator out of her bag one day walking into class. From that moment on, all it took was one student to humbuzz before the whole class would erupt sounding like a beehive on crack. I think the poor woman retired a few years after we left. Although I spent 6 years in that school and the joke never wore off. Somebody thought it would be funny to put dog it under a teacher's car, until the teacher punched the student in the face and got suspended. Also, our vice principal's nudes got leaked when he sent them to the cafeteria lady. Right before I got into high school, a high school girl almost got arrested for writing a kill yourself list on the bathroom stall. It included a bunch of girls, including one who was a teen mom and her baby. Many girls were questioned until one finally fessed up. The whole town knew about it. Math teacher had a relationship with a student that got exposed when he tried to have one with her sister 6 years later. Tons of CP on his computer and dragged out of school in the middle of the day by cops. This was in middle school. Kid pulled a knife on another student. It was only a pocket knife, but he threatened the kid with a ducking knife, so he was expelled by 4th period. Happened before school started. Edit. Will give more details if wanted. I feel like that was an appropriate action tbh. This one girl threatened to slash up my face with an X-Acto knife. I told the guidance counselor and she said it's only an X-Acto knife. Nothing will happen. Guess whose left shoulder and ear got slashed up with an X-Acto knife while my back was turned in the cafeteria? Way back in elementary school, when I was in grade 1 or 2. Someone hung a girl up by the back of her shirt on a coat hook in the girls' bathroom. By the time she was found by her best friend, actually, she was non-responsive. She did not survive. I don't know if the person or people who did it were ever caught. I was too young at the time and they weren't going to give us details. By the time I was older, it had just become the incident that you did not talk about. Edit. Changed hanger to hook. Seeing all the posts about kids eating on the floor. A kid used to put his it around the school, like in the corridor, on windowsills, in lockers, etc. It escalated a bit and he would put his it in a box and then hide it for someone to find. Even years after he left, no one knows where he went. Teachers were still finding boxes of it in the back of cupboards, in filing cabinets, etc. 1. 2 guys 2 girls left school on a Monday morning. Got drunk and had a foursome. The pictures and videos leaked almost an hour after and it was disgusting. I don't think I have ever seen anything as look at us or tacky. It was vile. 2 teacher was under suspicion of sexting a student and then went to jail for a few days and never came back. 3. A girl vaped into the smoke detector and we had a fire drill in 30-degree weather. Well, for every year I was in high school we had a suicide. So there's that. Also, band director had sex with a student, as did a gym teacher, although that was years before me. 2 years 9s. So whatever the age 15 equivalent is in your country. A girl gave a guy a blowjob on the bus when the year group was being taken back from an excursion in front of everyone. It was filmed. Around 100 plus kids got sent the video to their phones. The girl had to leave the school and move a couple of districts away and was known forever as a slut. She had no social media to trace her and I think now goes by her middle name. My friend brought in vodka mixed with Sunny D and got suspended for a month. Same friend got accused of doing drugs in the bathroom, but that was never confirmed. A guy in my grade was an alcoholic, I guess. Brought whiskey and cola or STH in an unsuspicious bottle to school every day. Basically everyone knew at a certain point. Even the teachers. No one cared though, since we were all of legal age to drink by then. Just not at school. And he was actually one of the smarter guys, asking critical questions that made the lessons much more interesting and educational. Smoking weed during recess was super common for some of us. 2. I'm sure the teachers noticed, but a lot of them were hippies themselves. One of our bio teachers was this obvious pothead. His classroom was the most remote. Practically no one ever went there without a good reason. One time some students saw him leave his room and with him a cloud of that dank smell. On retrospect, our school was chill AF. Gosh, I miss those days. 2 teens banged in a bathroom stall and someone took a video of it over the door. Since they were minors and it was technically child porn, cops were called. Sad part was that, from what I've heard, dude was just on his phone while the girl was on his lap. He didn't give her it, and she was one of those girls trying to get into the popular crowd. So she was deaf, doing it for the wrong reasons. She changed schools after that. A year before I started, a kid got a brain aneurysm and died in the field. And after school there has been multiple suicide attempts, with one being successful. During school we had to go into lockdown because an ex-student came in with an axe looking for a specific teacher. High school was whack. My high school was a K-12, and when I got to school one day during my junior year, there was a giant yellow bus half blocking the entrance, half over the fence up against a tree. Turns out a middle schooler got a hold of the keys somehow and tried to steal the bus. Poor kid didn't even make it out of the parking lot. My freshman year of high school, someone called in a bomb threat after second period. So it was around 9 in the morning and the whole school was marched out to sit in the football stadium while we waited for emergency services to investigate. We sat out past when school ended, so around 3 PM. Only to find out that the bomb robot found someone's cell phone vibrating in their locker. The college I go to has a haunted building that was built by a man who had slowly been losing his mind and designed the building to be confusing in order to trap his wife there to kill her. That same college also had its original main building burnt down by protesters or an angry student. This happened in the 70s, I think. But still no one knows who did it till this day. That same college also has had numerous blackface incidents with no punishments, and someone hung up a noose in the dorms. My school has a jogging session at 6 AM every Friday. After jogging, 600 plus students from 3 grades got to change clothes. But the restrooms are really small and can only fit so little. So most of us change in the classrooms. Boys and girls separated, of course. One day it was revealed that some boys had worked together to buy a camera system and recorded videos of the girls changing. What happened to those responsible? Nothing significant. They weren't expelled. Pisses me off how much my middle school cares so much about keeping its image. We got a new principal for 3 years. My middle school and high school are joined. Everyone loved him. He was one of the best things that happened to the school. Then one day he just dropped off the face of the earth. No joke. No one knew what happened to him for a year. Then when my grade graduated, we were told that he passed away and we weren't to tell the younger grades. Guess what happened only a few short weeks later? Freshman year, got placed on lockdown toward the end of the day, from about 2:30 until 3:30, so only about 10 minutes. After school was supposed to get out, because a house down the street from school was being raided by a SWAT team. Turns out it was a drug den. They didn't tell us why we were being locked down, so a lot of people initially thought it was a shooter. Other than that, the only major thing I can think of is a guy in my class getting caught jacking off in the cafeteria bathroom in our 8th grade year.